Hey folks, welcome to the Metal Mill 52 workshop. My name is Bill. This is my shop. I'd like to open this week by thanking the new subscribers. I just noticed that we have like 50 or 60 new subscribers, and I'm really excited about that. So I appreciate existing subscribers passing the word. This is kind of a fun community. If you haven't noticed yet, the machinists and live steamers that are on YouTube, it's really great. In fact, this past weekend I connected with Andrew Whale, who's got the Learning Turning Metal channel. He had a question on the corn group and the corn tool and cutter grinder, which you can see under wraps behind me over there. So I was able to provide some insight. So Andrew, great talking to you. Anyway, this project I'm working on right now, of course, is the LBSC Tich locomotive. And in this week's episode, you can't see it here, but underneath there's an ash pan and a grate. We made the grate last episode. We made the ash pan and installed it this week. So it was a little tricky, a little fiddly, like so much stuff with the Tich. And I got some great advice from my friend Fred, and hopefully that will be helpful in operation, because I've actually never burned a coal running locomotive before, and Fred has. He's built a dozen or so. So stay tuned and hope you enjoy. Ask questions if you have any. Give me a thumbs up for encouragement if you don't have any questions. I appreciate it. And have a great week, everybody. Thanks. Hey, folks, next thing to do now that I've built the grate is to build the ash pan. And first thing I did was to draw out the ash pan design double size just to get a feel for it. Now, LBSC talks about making this thing out of 18 gauge or 20 gauge. My machine, only the thickest it will go is 22 gauge, so I'm going to start with that because I have some 22 gauge stuff left over from when I built my Allen Mogul, and this piece is large enough for sure to make the grate, so it'll be a good practice thing if nothing else. As you can see, I've done some other practice, having some other pieces laying around. This is when I built a homemade rivet squeezer when I was building my Allen Mogul tender, and had practiced on this. Also bought a brand new full-size sheet of, or a larger sheet of 22 gauge just in case I need that. But first step is to lay everything out on this small piece, and then we'll try I'm going to try the shear, see if I can actually cut this material on the shear on the 3-in-1 machine. If not, I can cut it out on the bandsaw. For sure the bending brake will be handy on this thing, but it should be a fun learning experience. We'll get started. I'll bring you back once I've got everything laid out on my small piece. Okay, the first attempted use of the little machine was not at all satisfactory. This is the 22 gauge, which it's supposed to be able to handle, and it's not that big a piece. It's only 3 inches long. But as you can see, that edge, that is not a clean cut. I even did adjust the brake, the clamping part here to hold it securely, and made sure that the bottom table was lined up, but it does not shear perfectly, so probably some alignment and maybe some thickness, but that's 22 gauge and it should be able to cut that, I think. So off to the bandsaw. Simple enough to cut out the design on the bandsaw and then drill the holes. Okay, here's the ash pan cut out on the bandsaw, and I did use the belt sander to finish off to smooth the back edges. So, and you can see the little tabs that I have there for welding. Another thing I'm planning on doing is suspending the grate. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but my boiler does not have copper that sticks down in the firebox that I could permanently mount the grate to. So instead of that, what I'm planning on doing is mounting the grate to the ash pan and then supporting the ash pan from underneath. And I'd have to remove the whole assembly to clean it out if I can't scrape out from underneath. So the point is, if I'm going to do this, these little holes here are not going to line up like I drew them. So I want to double check that and think about how I do that before I drill the holes here. Just a note of a little change. I must have stripped out the 256 holes that I drilled and tapped in the side of the grate. So I've just gone through and drilled them out and with the little pin vise there, and tapped them with the 348 tap. So that's just wanted to make note of that for future reference. I know I keep saying this, but I'm so glad I took the time to build the universal pillar tool. It was a cool, fun project, and Rustinox, you're so right. That little $5 sewing machine motor that I got at a yard sale and had to redo the wirings on, it's still kicking. It's not quiet, but you know, it's not that loud either. And I just used it to drill the holes in this sheet metal that'll be the ash pan. But let me turn it on so you can hear, in case anybody wants to hear what it sounds like. So it's not terribly loud. What I like about it is it's not as high pitched as my Dremel. So it's funny, the pitch changes when you go into drilling mode, but to me it's one of the coolest things I've ever built, honestly. I've got it mounted over here next to the corn. I haven't used the corn yet either. Been too busy building new stuff, but can't wait to try that out. I've got plenty of end mills that need to be sharpened and drills and stuff as well. So thought I'd show the little interlude, and I did get the little clearance holes for the 348 screws drilled. So now it's time to try to bend this baby, see what it looks like. All right, as you can see here, the old Binford 3-in-1 tool, although it wasn't much good as a shear, it is working well to bend the 22 gauge steel. And I hope I'm not blocking out the camera view, but it's really difficult to see the lines, so I think I've got that lined up just right. I'm going to step over to the side here and we'll just put the bend in. There we go. Shoot. This is kind of like the old woodworkers or carpenters adage about measure twice, cut once. With a bending brake, you get like one chance to get it lined up right, and I mean, it's just a piece of thin steel. So there we go, the bending. Pull it up, take it out. Not bad. If you can see that. That actually went a little further than 90 degrees. I didn't really mean to make it go that far, because I'm going to have to bend it back out because I need to make that final bend across the back. What I'm going to have to do as well to make that, because I got the little tabs in the way, and this is a nice thing about a finger brake, I'll probably use this one and loosen these other ones up, take them out, move them out of the way so that the brake is isolated. So I'm going to cut the camera off while I make that adjustment. Okay, here I've removed just the little finger on the end, and as you can see, this one's got one of those shims. If you watch the video, this is actually a Vivor machine that I bought, got a really killer price on, but it did need some fine tuning, and this is one of them. The thickness, had to add that shim to it. I think several of these have them on, so it was a little tricky taking it out. Anyway, I've got this set up, so as you can see, just that one finger, it's clear on the sides. So I'm going to get it all positioned, put my little magnifying glass back on and get it ready, and I'll make a bend, and I'll bring you back and show you that. Alright, I think I've got it all set to go. Let's crank in the little bend and see what it looks like. Not bad. Come out a little, not quite as sharp an angle as I wanted. I'm going to put that back in and fiddle with it a little bit. Once I get it vertical, then I'll just hand bend these two tabs behind that I was thinking about using for the welding them together. Here's the ash pan and grate set inside. I've got it screwed together just temporarily with some conventional screws, and it seems to fit together okay. I did place it in the chassis, and I could hear the eccentric hit the bottom of the pan. Let me lay this down and I'll show you what the grate looks like inside the pan. So there you go. It sits in there pretty nice. I mean, couldn't really ask for a better fit. I haven't yet welded the edges here. What I'm going to do is go over and see my friend Fred, and friend and mentor Fred, He's actually run and built all the locomotives he's built, which are many of them have been coal burners. So he would be able to give me really good advice on whether the metal is thick enough, the fitting is right, or if I need to adjust anything. So I'm gonna hold what I got so far. Maybe tomorrow night I'll make the actual stainless steel screws here, because I think I'm going to need them regardless. So I'll keep you posted on how this goes, but pretty pleased with what it looks like so far. Okay, I've got the ash pan taped just with painter's tape to the boiler, the bottom of the boiler. I'm going to try, I don't know if this will show or not. See if we can see if it hits. I think it might be alright. Try putting the light on here. Segment had a day off from work today. It's a national holiday. Happy Veterans Day to all you veterans out there. And I've got the Tich in the back seat. I'm riding over to Fred's house to show him what my progress so far and get some advice on a couple of questions that I had. So I'll bring you back and discuss those in the next segment, I guess. Have a great day. Having a little fun at the lathe here. I've got some 3/16 inch stainless steel rod, and I've just turned it down to just under 99 thousandths. And as you can see, I've marked at a 1/4 inch. And I've got in my tailstock die holder, I've got the 348 die. So I'm getting ready to do this at slow speed, and I'll use some tap paste on it and hopefully have a successful threading of that first 1/4 inch. So these are a little larger than those that are called for in the book. And here's the ash pan and grate with the little stainless custom made screws in it. I do need to take these back out. I was just test fitting them. I'll take them out, put them into the lathe, and clean the heads off, just face off them, and then I can put a screwdriver slot in each of them, and we'll be good to go. My little setup, I just tack welded the corners. I'm a terrible welder, but just enough to tack those corners on for the ash pan. I'm a little Harbor Freight MIG welder. Someday I'll have time to practice and get good. That's the last of the milling the screws out. Kind of fun, kind of like making cheese head screws for guns or something, but anyway. I used a 1/16 inch end mill, went 50 thou deep. Pretty happy with how that came out. Alright, here we go with the basically completed ash pan and grate. And it is solid as a rock, so I'm pretty happy about that. Let's see if we can get the fit right. And then the big question is going to be drilling a hole underneath and any other kind of support. I'll discuss that in a minute. There's the ash pan fitted in place with the grate screwed into place as well. And it fits very nicely on there. The thing that I discussed with Fred yesterday, we mocked it up and tried a couple of different variations of trying to remove the ash pan and grate while with the boiler in place, and it's going to be a tight squeeze. It wouldn't be quite so bad except for the brake assembly is right there in the way. So you know, on a day with a lot of running, I could see it would be tricky. What we talked about was, you know, bringing it in and kind of finagling it out through the gap here. We were able to do it, but one thing Fred suggested was, instead of having the pin that goes all the way across, maybe having a support member up front here, and then just having maybe side pins or something. I'm just not sure. What the concern was, that having a pin across the bottom here, the way LBSC has it in the drawings, it would interfere with cleaning out from underneath, you know, so if the pin goes through where my thumb is tapping. So I don't know. having never run coal before, I'll have to defer to the advice of those that have, and I see the valid point. I'm thinking maybe let's test fit it and see what it looks like in place. And one option would be to drill the holes like LBSC calls for, and instead of having a bar that goes all the way across, have a couple of bolts that come in from the side. And in that case, having the front support would be even handier. Okay, for putting the rod or whatever it is across the support for the ash pan, the critical thing, they give you the length in, that's 3 3/8 inch from the back. That was easy enough to mark here. The critical thing is how deep, so that the rod supports the grate and keeps the ash pan in place, but is not so deep that it blocks the flow. So what I did, it's kind of a simple matter of putting something underneath the bottom of the grate there, holding it as level as you can get, and then measuring it with the depth using a digital caliper like this. So this is what I did, and I measured it against a little piece of brass across here while I held the little popsicle sticks level. Probably a crazy way to do it, but I got a measurement. So what I'm planning on doing, because it's such a goofy way, I'll write that down. I'll try to duplicate this about 3 times and get the right measurement, and that will be the distance to the bottom of the ash to the grate. And so I'll have to, my hole will have to be below that, obviously, at least half the diameter of whatever size rod that I used to go across there. So I'll have to remember that. Also, as far as a front support, I do think that might be a good idea. I don't know if you can see this or not. Let me get a little pointer out. But right inside here, these are the inside the frame. You can see where my thing is. That's the there's nuts for the brake assembly, the brake hangers on either side. Here's the brake hanger post on this side. So similar, there's a nut there. What I'm thinking is I might be able to use the inside of that, just take a piece of wire and kind of bend it in a wagon top shape, just as a sort of a springy support. Wouldn't hurt. Okay, success. This is something I was kind of dreading, was making a little pin that goes across the back, but as you can see, I used my Dremel with a 3/32 inch drill. I used a center drill. After I marked it, I used the center punch. And what my goal was here, to have the bar below, significantly enough below that it wouldn't interfere with the grate. I don't know, I'm sure the grate will sag a little bit, and the bar might be a little bit too low, but I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm using this 3/32 inch stainless, and I'm really satisfied with how that is. Right now I just need to mark and cut it off and thread one of the ends and make a little knob, very small knob for it, so that I can pull it out. And for the front, I'm kind of liking that idea of just a piece of wire that does like a wagon top across the front, across the top. Let's see if I can shine the light on there. Use those brake screws and just have something, just an additional support that goes across there. So I'll bring you back and show you what that looks like. Okay, made up a little tiny little brass knob handle for the dump pin. Got the rod that goes all the way through, and we'll see if that's serviceable or not. So I'm going to take it apart now. I Loctited that on, and I'll take it apart and put in a little piece of brass to go across and support the front. I think I'm going to use just some 1/16 inch brass rod and make, like I said, a little wagon top design. I'll show you in a minute. Here's a shot of the little 1/16 inch brass rod I've twisted up, and I want to put it on these screws on either side. So we'll put it and see how it fits. And that's what the little wire looks like installed. Not much to it, but I just did a test fit, and I think it's going to be good. So let me put the whole thing together, and then we'll pack it in for the night, and we'll see what it comes next. Alright, I think this is a phenomenal suggestion that Fred had, to have a little front support in here. And as you can see, it moves around there, so room for expansion when it all gets hot. And let me set the boiler on top, and you can see what that looks like.